Hello, hello, hello. We are live. Super exciting. I love being on live stream. It's one thing to do these interviews and speak to really great guests, on a Zoom channel or whatever. But I think there's just something really nice about being in the moment and speaking to someone and getting to know them. I'm very excited to speak to Dr. Ketan Kulkarni. But before we get to that, I have to play our Happy Doc intro video. So guys, I want to say this is an interesting episode because I'm involved with some different business opportunities in the background. I think often when you're in life and there's a lot of stuff happening in the world, like with what's happening with world affairs right now, when you're trying to develop yourself and there's a lot of chaos, it can be difficult to manage all of that. This is the Happy Doc podcast, but I'm also going to be streaming this to my NFT project that I'm working on with some amazing people. And that project's called the Shell Shakas. And we created a little channel basically for healthcare professionals, or we're calling it Shelf Care, which is hilarious. So it's really fun to have these different streams of people to tune in to today's episode and really get to know Dr. Ketan Kulkarni. Thank you for being on the show. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you, Taylor, for the opportunity. I really appreciate being on it and sharing some of the thoughts that we've been talking about for the last while.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
I heard some great things about your NFTs and saw some of the artwork yesterday. It's quite exciting times, even though there's lots of background chaos in the world, like you said. So we got to find that little joy in the
Yeah,
little things.
absolutely. Thank you for that. And so Dr. Kulkarni, thank you again for being on the show. Can you give our listeners a little bit of a background in terms of your training and what got you excited about going into medicine?
Yeah, so like a lot of people around, I trained for about 14 years, did my medical school, did my fellowship, and then, did the subspecialty training, did some research fellowships, and then, started my first job back in 2014, and I was gung ho about, trying to find my joy, trying to find happiness, trying to contribute, trying to provide best patient care, change the world, discover new avenues of research, and so on and so forth. And when I started the job, you realize very quickly that you're not trained to do the job, right? You're trained to do work, but you're not really trained to handle the job well. And it comes with a lot of responsibilities, and a lot of people have to rapidly sort of go through that learning curve, So I invested a lot of time, effort, and energy after starting the job to develop my research program and academic career. And it worked great. In 5 years, I got my first promotion. But then, in 2017-18, despite sort of a growing family and supportive family and very successful research program and academic program, I found myself burnt out. And, I didn't recognize that at the time. It felt like, well, I'm exhausted. I can't just keep put up with this. And not too many people around in Canada were talking about it. It seemed like, well, you just got to suck it up. It's 24/7, your problem, what can we do? This is how it is, this is the expectation, and that's all good. That was all good. But then slowly I had the opportunity to train myself in leadership. I had lots of leadership training opportunities, and that opened multiple doors. I was able to be inquisitive and seek help and seek mentoring and coaching amidst of that. And that lasted for the next 3 or 4 years, and then I obtained coaching certification. But in the middle of all this, I realized that there's bigger other sides to life as well. A happy person will make a happy doctor, but an unhappy person will make an unhappy doctor. So Happy Doc is a perfect name, right? I mean, if we want to be happy docs, we have to be better aligned internally and externally, so that we deliver our best care and contribute our best to our patients and whatever else we are working on. So that's how I realized that I had put a lot of my passions on the back burner. I was always interested in entrepreneurship, always interested in creativity, new technology, doing something that's meaningful and that has contribution. So that's how I once again started rekindling my entrepreneurial adventures, and started working with lots of friends and colleagues and collaborators like yourself and so many others. And that's led to now several serial entrepreneurial adventures. And particularly Here I want to mention the coaching work that's been happening. I became a certified coach last year, and then have expanded the collaboration. And I and Francis Yu are launching our first book actually 1 week from now on Albert Einstein's. Thank you. Albert Einstein's birthday. So it really is has been our focus of our work for the last 18 months or so, and we are also soon going to launch a podcast. So we are quite excited to hopefully make a positive impact on everybody and join others seeking inner and outer fulfillment.
That's amazing. And you've had, a lot of training in medicine and research. You've put in hours, you put in the work, and I want to highlight, it's not just with medicine, but in healthcare in
Mhm.
general, there's a great challenge with you need to get your work done. You need to take care of everyone else, but
Mhm.
the focus of also managing your internal energy and the focus of managing your inner state, and the ability to do that while taking care of others is a huge challenge. And you
Mhm.
mentioned you went through burnout, which
Mhm.
is a state of complete exhaustion, depersonalization, a feeling of depression, or lack of motivation in the work that you do. And it's a terrible feeling. I'm not as far along as you in terms of the length of training and work that you've put in. And I got burnt out even in med school, so it's definitely something that's so important to talk about. Can you describe, did you hit a wall? Can you describe what happened internally? Because usually, a space of self-reflection usually starts from a challenge. When you want to change your direction in life, it usually comes from an
Right.
intense struggle. Did
Yeah.
it happen to you was it one specific moment that just changed everything, or did it happen incrementally? Like, what was that feeling like for your exhaustion?
Yeah, I think, Taylor, that's a phenomenal question. So I remember this quite vividly, right? I mean, in the job, I was putting in the 60, 80, 100 hours, whatever it takes to build my program. By 2018, I was, probably already close to 100 publications and presenting internationally and, doing a lot of different things. But then I couldn't help but notice, I've always fortunately been very inquisitive. I couldn't help but notice that I met tons of international expert in my area, and so many mentors, so many different specialties. I've involved with so many committees. One thing was very common. A lot of people were disgruntled. They appeared dissatisfied, unhappy. You ask them, well, how are things going? They would say, oh my gosh, it's busy. Well, you would kind of expect that you're a world expert. You would say, yeah, this is good. I'm doing these exciting things. But on the contrary, I commonly heard comments like, oh my gosh, it's so tiring. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. Can't keep up with this. A lot of them, it was not hard to notice that a lot of them did not necessarily have lots of family and social life or social support, in the sense that they were working like 12 to 14-hour days. That was the cultural norm. And then slowly, I said, well, you know what, it's okay. All of us think we are really, really good and strong and smart, and we're going to get through this no problem. But honestly speaking, we are no better or worse than anybody else who's done very good things in their career. So we are equally equipped with the same skill set. And come 2017-18, I started getting exposed to the challenges in the workplace, some of the issues that you get exposed in any job, not just medicine, any job. I hear the same things from the business world people. Slowly but surely, like you said, I would sleep 10 hours at night and still wake up in the morning saying, oh my gosh, I don't want to go. I'm still tired. I started
Mm,
noticing that I'm tired. The purpose was blurring. The inner fire for taking care of patients was certainly there. That's never fortunately gone. We want to do the best possible job, but it just felt ego dystonic, in the sense that it did not quite resonate that, why am I doing this? Should I just kind of finish this quick and go do something I like? Or, you're kind of looking at the watch like, okay, how long is this going to
yeah.
take? And, I don't want to be at the meeting, it's just too busy. So it was not feeling like I was doing it intentionally. It was more of a force, more of a grudge, more of a fight to get through that. And it was quite clear that something had to change. You can't expect to change the whole system. The first and the only thing you can change is yourself. So it
Yeah.
took several years of training to really get below the surface and see what you could first do better, what I could first do better to really align myself, and then see if other things fall in place. And yeah, being inquisitive and reaching out to people definitely helped at the time, because and then I got lucky with some training opportunities, and some funded scholarship positions to sort of really go deep into leadership training that then sort of expanded to success training and financial training and entrepreneurship.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's interesting hearing what you're saying, and I want to highlight something that you mentioned, which is you felt this inner feeling of looking at the clock, wanting the day to just go by. You didn't feel connected to your work, even if you were helping people. You just kind of want to get through it, and I want to highlight that for our listeners because if you're just trying to get through the day and you're looking at the
Mhm.
clock and you're waiting for something to pass, that's not passion. That's not excitement.
Yeah,
That's not
correct.
connection. And when we're talking about connecting to joy and creating inner joy, we
Mhm.
got to figure out how to take a step back and figure out what the heck is going on. So let's fast forward a little bit, Keaton. This topic we're going to talk about today is about creating inner joy,
Yeah.
and this idea, I know your book and the podcast is going to be The Legendary Quest. I'm very
Mhm.
grateful to be aware of that in advance, and to help with that process. Tell us more about this legendary quest. What does that mean? What are the steps to us starting this journey?
Yeah, I think again, you're a great interviewer. You ask the phenomenal questions. So I and Francis, we are friends, colleagues, co-authors, and deeply connected in each other's work. We are a little bit nerdy too, so we've been both interested in different areas and different sciences. But to name a few, we've always been students of life. We've been studying ancient and modern literature. I have been very interested in theoretical physics and psychology and mysticism and mathematics, and occult sciences, if you will. But really, I figured that I'm on a quest. I'm on a quest to understand why is it that most people in the world are unhappy and unfulfilled. Why is it that only very few people seem to have it all? It's why is it not the right birthright of everybody to be happy, fulfilled, and live their optimum life? And that question probably bothered me from teenage times, and studying countless biographies and reading countless books and resources and podcasts and thinking and reflection really sort of led in the end to this, with me and Francis working together for the last 2 years, consistently tackling each and every question. So this is sort of a description of our interpretation, understanding, investigation, and research summary on what are the determinants of happiness and joy. So if we look at the human condition, we've got two major, our mind at least has two major purposes. One is to seek pleasure. We all want to be happy. Joy is a fundamental necessity. And the second one is to avoid pain. We all want to avoid any discomfort or pain. But on the contrary, like I was mentioning, most people, no matter what they have, what they achieve, professional degrees, accolades, promotions, you name it, in all fields, you always see that the mental health crises are on the rise. There's so much mental health pandemic, probably much worse than the COVID-19. And a lot of people remain in this consistent state of distress, visceral discontent, anxiety, some form of discomfort that just doesn't seem to go away. So that's how the legendary quest was sort of conceived. That first, it's a three-part book. So in the first part, we sort of describe what we call the limited self model, that explains sort of the mental condition and state in which most people reside most of their lives, and why that leads to unfulfilled sort of behavior and nature. And then we sort of describe what we have got wrong, in terms of our ideology around success, ideology around money, relationships, wealth, and entitlement, in the modern society, consumerism, influence of media, determinants of lived experience, so on and so forth, but in a careful manner, so that we put it all in sort of bite-sized pieces, so that anybody and everybody can read through and immediately start applying to their lives. Then the second part of the book kind of shifts gears, enough of describing problems. Then we describe something we call as the awareness model, which really sort of gets to the inner excellence piece. And then we go through the whole process of how anybody and everybody, like, trust me, nobody needs to spend tons of dollars and break the bank and take a 6-month retreat or go to the mountains and Rockies and this and that. It can be done right like this, right where you are. You could connect with like-minded people, and slowly it's a path, right? It's a progress to self-mastery. None of us are there, but if we consistently apply the principles, like anything else, a good habit forms. So that's what it walks through in the second part. And then, of course, in the third part, we propose that inner excellence is going to lead to outer excellence, and we describe a synthesis of what we think is true success and lasting success, and then go through leadership in personal and professional context, and then importantly also discuss money, and finances, and how we need to approach the whole concept of money. It's not a book on investing. We tackle the fundamental piece of money as to how humans emotionally react and respond to money, and how that needs to be
Mm.
aligned better. And then in the end, we present a happiness hypothesis as a summary of what we think can be done by all of us to live authentically and reach inner and outer fulfillment, not as a destination, but as an ongoing journey. So that's sort of the short description of the book.
Yeah, I love that you went through the pathway with me. It's great to understand, the process, because you're talking about this sort of limited self model. That's what I was
Hmm.
hearing. And a lot of, and again, I'm just listening to it for the first time, but when I think about that, it reminds me a lot of kind of in psychology what we discuss as negative core beliefs,
Yeah,
or
correct.
these belief systems around different sections of who we are
Yeah,
and what
yeah,
our life is about. And I think that's such a great place to start, because you can't be happy if you internally, whether
yeah,
you know it or not, feel like you're just the lowest of the low human
yeah.
in certain areas of your life. It reminds me of growing up. I was always a little chubby, and so I had kids make fun of me for being
Right,
fat. And
right.
so I had this limited model of me being
Hmm.
ugly and fat for a long time,
Hmm.
right? And I'd be afraid to take my shirt off, or I was
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
yeah.
And again, I don't want to get too deep into that, but that type of limiting belief impacted the quality of me, of my interactions with people, the quality of me talking to people. And so I think it's great you start there, and then you start to go into the solutions or this awareness around that, which I think is
Hmm.
fantastic. And
Hmm.
just from my personal work as a psychiatrist and doing my work in psychology, I think that's going to be a wonderful pathway for the reader and the listener of your podcast. So I'm very happy to hear that. I see the pathway. It's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the feedback. You have a lot of experience with this, and really the true purpose in the hearts of our hearts, we want to make a meaningful contribution so that all of us experience more fulfillment and more joy and more success. And you're 100% right. I mean, psychology is such a phenomenal field that, since they conceived what we now know as positive psychology in the 90s, with some of my other colleagues like Sanj Katyal and Jordan Feingold and, Paul Frampus, we did this Thrive RX course, which is based on positive psychology, and it is such a powerful technique. I mean, a lot of coaching models, the modern coaching models that take a somewhat linear approach to coaching, are based on cognitive behavior therapy and psychology.
Hmm.
But that's certainly, to highlight for our listeners, that's not the only approach. I mean, there's no one model of coaching, right? I mean, in the book, we sort of take a more umbrella approach. All of us are different. Life is an experiential piece, right? It's not necessarily an intellectual algorithmic protocol. So, some people react faster to thinking intervention, some people react to emotional intervention, some people react to physical intervention, some people react to a combination of those, and
Hmm.
so on and so forth. So I think it's really about finding who you are and why you are who you are, like you were describing. I mean, some of those comments, one of the things I developed as a young adult was very severe seborrheic dermatitis. So it caused a lot of, hair fall and this and that. So, all of those things at the time caused distress. And you are like
Hmm.
almost ashamed of it, and you feel you're guilty, you did something wrong, this happened. And it could shake your confidence to core, right? Even very trivial things can shake your confidence to core. So, for example, in the money coaching, we go through this, right? I mean, people often form core beliefs around money that they don't even realize how their parents might say, oh, don't worry about it, we should really save for the future, you shouldn't be spending the money. And then they develop this scarcity mindset that, they we are emotional creatures, right? I mean, most of the decisions people make around money are emotional, no matter how they think or how they rationalize them later. So it's really
Hmm.
important, in my or our opinion, my and Francis's opinion, to really understand who we are, why we are who we are, and then sort of demystify that with universal truths that we understand. I mean, we're not saying anything new. This has always been known for 5,000 years. And the great masters in the world sort of suggested a more spiritual pathway, but it's unlikely that most of us, it's unlikely that any of us will probably quit all the modern grid and suddenly go live in a remote land without money, right? So we have to be able
Yeah.
to apply some of those principles in the modern context. What do we do in the era of technology, in the digital world, in the entrepreneurial world, in the rapidly changing world? What are the core principles that are unchanging? And that's sort of the investigation we are hoping to present in our work.
Yeah, I love that you just said that, because that was going to be my sort of follow-up comment. So I love that I heard that. Again, these spiritual masters figured it out in their timeline, in their era, but the application of these of this inner work and the spiritual work or character work, and applying it to today's setting, that's the challenge. That's why there will never be enough books about this stuff, because the application of the landscape is
Right.
always changing, right? And I love that you said, find out about who you are, why are you the way you are, and then what can we do about it? What are the next
Yeah.
steps? And
Correct.
I think about it almost like create who you are. So
Hmm. Hmm.
if you understand your past and you understand how you got there, then maybe you can live in the present and create who you are now. I think the most, when I think about happiness and joy in my personal life, the thing
Yeah.
that gets me excited, or where I've found inner peace, has been who I was, and
Hmm.
what happened before doesn't have to be who I am today. And
Right.
I'm allowed to create, to build, to write my story actively.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to read their last 10 chapters, but I think if you can understand your last 10 chapters and then
Yeah.
understand the book, and then start to write your
Yeah.
story instead of letting the book write you, then
Yeah.
you're able to. So anyways, I'm preaching to the choir here.
No, that's great.
um
No, no, I
I'm
think you showed some phenomenal insight there. That's so correct. I mean, that's exactly the meaning of living by design. That, when the master said you are the creator of your destiny, that's probably where they were going. That, instead of blame shifting and pretty much holding everything else outside of you responsible, you take the onus of what is, and then start again. And that is why it is well known that life follows, right? I mean, a lot of these principles are not easy to understand and apply. I mean, let's say something bad happens, then obviously we kind of have the anger, guilt, fear, shame, everything else, all the negative emotions. And how do we navigate through that, and how do we sort of keep our inner joy? That those are some of the things we tackle as well in our work, because I think that's the key, right? I mean, more often than not, things are not going to be happening in the way we want them to or expect them to. So I think getting below the surface for that is quite key.
Yeah, no, I think it's wonderful that you guys have broken down the exploration of the inner work. There's no formal training. You don't go to elementary school, you don't go to
Yeah.
middle school or secondary school. You don't learn this in graduate school. You don't learn this in medical school.
Not at all.
There's no specific training, and it's the most important training, which
Yeah.
is, how do I feel fulfilled in the
Yeah.
process of this life I'm living? I mean, I can't think of important um, a more important lesson. How do I enjoy the process of my being? I can't think of
Yeah.
something more valuable, because again, if you're living day to day and you're not soaking up the experience,
Yeah.
what was it about? I don't know. That's
Yeah.
just my personal standpoint on it. So I can only 1 second here. Sorry. I can only praise you. I can only praise you, because you're literally touching on, I think, the most valuable thing. There's
Yeah.
a
Thank you. Yeah.
fantastic. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no, I was just going to say thank you. I appreciate that feedback. When we start, like all entrepreneurs, you just don't know if it's worthwhile, right? I mean,
Yeah.
is anybody going to read this? Is it important? And, a lot of feedback like this is very supportive. It gives you confidence to keep going. And you're so right. I just wanted to, if I may make a comment, and then I'll come back to you. But uh, a lot of our measures of success are extrinsic, right? It's easy to say, person X, Joe Smith, has $5 million. It's indisputable. And now in the era of hyperinflation, it's irrelevant probably. But anyway, you can still
Hmm.
say that, person X has $5 million. He has a house on a beach, X, Y, Z. The problem is that the picture that's painted in front of us is that if you have X, Y, and Z things, you're automatically guaranteed to be happy. And unfortunately, it doesn't work like that, right? I mean, there's so many examples of, I'm not criticizing wealth, there's nothing wrong with having enormous amounts of wealth. But all I'm saying is that we cannot equate that just because you had a net worth of 25 million, it guarantees you happiness. It doesn't. The data is abundantly clear. And yet, a lot of people are pursuing, uh, let's say, material wealth because that's very indisputable, sacrificing many other important aspects of life. And then you wonder why, even though you achieved a $25 million net worth, you're not still happy. That's one aspect of it. And, um, I think it's really important to address that. I mean, it's really important to define what amount of monetary possessions and wealth is going to make you happy. And that answer is probably different for you, me, and everybody else. But in the book, we try to go through that process that, okay, how do you find exactly the numbers? And then keep reassessing them as time moves on, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because, in society, you're bombarded with the imagery and the concept that once you
Yeah.
achieve a certain level of wealth, that's going to create the joy. Um, in fact, quite often, when you achieve the material that you sought out for, you actually become less happy,
Yeah.
because a lot of people think that the reaching of the mountain or reaching of the summit creates the joy. It's
Yeah.
actually the pursuit. It's the
Yeah.
pursuit of a mission or goal that often creates the joy. But this material success, I mean, again, I know you're going to touch on this in your book and your podcast. I can't wait for listeners to get into the materials, and I definitely want to highlight that in a second. I just love what you're saying. I think, again, we need we need more spiritual or character development coaches and people who are focusing on inner work, because this is the juice. This is the experience. It reminds me, I was going to mention The Alchemist. In that
Yeah.
book, there's a great
Absolutely.
story. I'm going to shorten it a lot, but basically there's a story where someone has to have a spoon in his mouth walking across the
Mhm.
mansion, and the spoon has an egg on it. And um, the guru says, I want you to walk around the mansion and I want you to pay attention to this egg being on the
Mhm.
spoon.
Mhm.
And so he walks around the mansion and he has the egg on his spoon and he comes back with the egg intact. And the guru says, great job. What were the colors of the different paintings? Can you tell me
Yeah.
the paintings?
Correct.
And the guy says, I couldn't look at the paintings. I was focused on the egg.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
then he said, next time, all right, round two. I want you to go around the mansion, and I want you to have the spoon, the egg on the spoon, but I want you to really start to focus
Mm.
on the beauty of the mansion. So he goes out and
Mhm.
does it again, comes back, and now the egg's gone. It's destroyed,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
So he said, you will find inner wisdom and joy when you're able to simultaneously have the egg on the spoon and walk around and take it all in. And basically the lesson or the gift in that lesson is we have to be able to do our work and appreciate the process. You if you walk around in life but you never appreciate what it is that you're taking in, then you just worked the whole time and then took nothing in.
Yeah.
And so I think there's so much value to the lessons you're going to bring to people in developing that skill set, developing that thought process, and developing the inner work to allow the appreciation to happen while doing the work. So I'm extremely excited to see where you guys take it.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate that. I think you again mentioned a lot of important points. I mean, the one you said about achieving the goal and not being happy for it, that's impact bias. Most people misjudge the amount of happiness or sadness they will, experience after, losing something or reaching a particular joy. And they also, misjudge for how long they will be happy or sad. And that's one of the mental traps, right? It's an evolutionary trap that happened so that we get adapted to changing circumstances, and that's where we are sort of trapped. So I think, yeah, we are quite excited that we are able to present, scientifically based concepts, in the book, so that
Hmm.
it holds to reason, and it's time tested, and it's in fact it's timeless, so that all of us can access more inner joy, and yeah, that's we're quite excited, to be
Yeah, it's
honest.
amazing. So I love that. I love that you're teaching these concepts, and like you said, they're almost like they're absolute truths. These are things that are time tested. They're applicable. They're useful. I'm looking forward to learning more of those tips and those techniques and the lessons that you have in your book. So I think this is a great segue into asking you, when is the book coming out? How can people find you? What is the best way for people to contact you or reach you if they're looking for additional resources?
Yeah, so the book is releasing on 14th of March. So we picked up Einstein's birthday as the release date because he left the investigation. He proved the E equals mc square, but what he was really interested in proving was the relationship between matter, energy, and consciousness, which might be an impossible task, but that's where he left his work, and when he passed away. So that's why we sort of obviously dedicate to him and many other great souls in the world, our work. So that's the date we picked, and I'm very happy to connect with everybody and anybody who's interested in communicating, collaborating, learning and teaching, and so on and so forth. Easiest way to find me is Facebook. I run the Savvy Physician group. You can email me. You can, I've got a website. It's called savvyphysician.ca, CA for Canada. So, easy to connect. I respond to my emails and texts, so you wouldn't have a problem connecting with me.
Amazing, amazing. So we will make sure that those links are out there for people. This is live, so it's already gone to YouTube, it's gone to Facebook, it's gone to Twitter. I want to thank you, Dr. Ketan Kulkarni, for being with us today, for providing your wisdom, for talking to us about your podcast, The Legendary Quest, and the book that's coming out. It's very exciting to see someone really spearheading this specific aspect and being a part of that discussion. So thank you for your time. I think it's the most valuable thing you could have offered me today. And on top of that, you're offering valuable information for our listeners. We're going to close out for today. And of course, this is just part one. I'm sure there's going to be many conversations we have, digging into examples, digging into stories, talking about scenarios of people's lives, and helping, I think, bring value to create more inner joy. So I'm excited. This is not an end. This is just the beginning. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Would love to chat more, and appreciate the opportunity again. Take care, everybody.
Absolutely.